Welcome, BBCers, to episode number 132 of the Broken by Concept podcast, the number one SoloQ educational and motivational podcast. Third year running, Curtis, we're going to be doing the most anticipated, requested, really the only thing that people show up for this podcast, our one episode of the year of
One and done.
The season 13 ranked guide. We're going to encapsulate everything you need to know to have a successful season. I don't want to say successful.
Get off to the right foot at least.
Get off to the right foot, but just your approach to the game, the way you think about improvement, process, everything we talk about in this podcast. This is actually just a great episode as well if you're new to the podcast, of just a summary of what this podcast is about.
I think it's a great reminder as well for people who are long-term listeners. Just sort of check up, a reminder, refresher of some of the concepts that we've spoken about. We sometimes evolve our take on a few concepts. A lot we're going to cover today.
So we have 15 topics to go over here, guys. They'll all be in the timestamps in the YouTube, but if you're listening on Spotify, get ready. We've got 15 topics to talk about the ranked journey this year. Before we get into that though, Curtis, people were wondering, 2 weeks, no podcast. Everyone was...
Where was I?
Pitchforks. I put out...
Feeling pretty angry.
People were angry. I don't blame them. This is an awesome podcast.
So I went to Hong Kong for a week, or about 5 days, and I actually met with a long-term BBC listener, Kenneth. And it was pretty surreal because, in a way, it actually made me really... It was quite shocking because...
So you went on a hike with him?
Yeah, we met up and he's like, because he found out I was going to... I can't actually remember how he knew I was going to Hong Kong. And he's like, I'm from Hong Kong. I'll be happy to give you a tour and meet up with you and show you some places. And there's a lot of hiking in Hong Kong. So we end up going on this really long hike. It was a really beautiful hike. Put some pictures here. Charles will put them on the screen. It was just a beautiful day. And it was very surreal because obviously we're here in Melbourne and... all the way kind of on the other side of the world in this small little village in Hong Kong, there's a guy who sits there and plays League and listens to the BBC. And it was
crazy to think about.
Mind-blowing to think that I'm connecting with someone in a completely different place, a different culture, everything is different. And it was just shocking. It was really overwhelming in a way. It's like, wow, this is the power of technology, and this is the power of how League can connect people around the world. And we had a really amazing conversation. And it was funny. I was talking to him and I was about to get into a story. And he's like, oh, is that the story about that? Whatever it was.
He's heard every story already on the podcast.
He knows so much about me. It was overwhelming that he knew already so much about me, but I didn't know anything about him. But we had a really great time. And so shout out Kenneth. He's actually joined the MLA.
Nice.
Last opening. So he's in the MLA now.
Beautiful.
As well.
He's fully ticked off every box. He's a BBCR, listened to so many episodes, and now he's in one of our coaching programs.
As well. Yeah, he's a really, really nice guy. And I had a really great day with him. And shout out to Kenneth for helping us with plan that beautiful hike and helping us. Went to this big Buddha on the top of a mountain. It was just a great time. And we wouldn't have been able to do it without him. So thank you so much.
All right. So let's get straight in, Curtis, to our 15 topics. Okay, Curtis, our first one, the biggest question that we always get, the thing that people love to talk about, the thing that is I visualize this topic, people tearing their hair out, trying to figure out champion pool. Champion pool, champion pool. What does it mean? What do I need? How important is it? Let's get into it, Curtis.
Okay.
So I think there's different angles, there's different subsections of champion pool.
Yeah, there's a lot here to unpack. I think first and foremost, we need to talk about fun. That's where I want to start with this, okay? Everyone enjoys something different, just like we all enjoy different movies, different songs, music, whatever. So everyone who plays League has things they fundamentally enjoy about the game.
So for champion pool stuff, we're talking about players that just love to one-trick one champion, players that get bored of champions really quickly.
Well, okay, so there are different categories of players. We get players that are absolutely obsessed about one particular champion, and that is the reason they play League. They play League because of this champion. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to be a one-trick, you can be a one-trick. But I would say more often than not, majority of the League population maybe likes a category or a type of champion, whether it's mages, burst-oriented champions, assassins, skirmishers, whatever it might be, right? Now, the reason I want to talk about fun is that if you play champions that you fundamentally do not enjoy, you will drop them at some point. You will not stay consistent and develop that, stay long enough on that champion to develop a significant amount of champ mastery. And you won't be motivated to play and problem solve those very difficult situations. When both of us, when we think about our league journey and when we've had the most success with champions, is when we've gone to that next level of champ mastery, put in the mass amount of hours because we've loved the champion.
Learning, I always say this, learning about how to play that champion in the game that on draft, on paper looks terrible. That's the real levels of champion mastery. People will give up if you don't enjoy the champion. You're going to give up around, we always say around the 80 game mark is when people really start to see the weakness of the champion, and then they really struggle with, it's getting to those hundreds of games. That's when you start to really take things to the next level.
That's right. So in my experience, I remember I used to talk about, okay, we should play these because these are good for learning, or these are good for the meta, or whatever it might be. None of that, everything kind of pales in comparison to just fundamentally enjoying the champion. That you don't need to love it, but you definitely enjoy it. So, and obviously there's levels to that, right? We'll kind of touch on that later. The other aspect of this is you need to cater your champ pool size for the rank that you're at. What is it like in the SoloQ? So if someone's in gold, what would you rate? Do you recommend 1 champion, 2 champions?
It's 2 to 3.
So 2 to 3 in gold? What about platinum?
Actually, sorry, no, I can't say 2 to 3. 2. 2 in gold.
Same for me in MLA, 2 in gold.
Platinum, 2. Diamond, then I'll move to 3.
So 2 in plat.
2 in plat still. Okay. Yep. I think about all my SoloQ members have gotten results for the gold, platinum to diamond. It's always 1-2 champions.
Okay. And diamond?
Diamond, that's when I'll be moving to expand in 3.
Okay.
And then master tier plus. I mean, that goes into another topic of now champion cycling. They've got a lot of experience.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a second, though.
Yeah.
We'll come back to champ pool cycling. But fundamentally, 2 in gold, 2 in plat, can be 3 in diamond, and then can be more in master plus. Yeah, so very similar to me. I think 1 and 2, 1 or 2. If you can stick to 1 or 2 in gold, that will help a lot. I believe that a high plat player can play 3. It gets a little bit more nuanced on a case-by-case basis, because what you'll get is some players who have very easy to execute champ pools, and we'll get into this in a second as well. So maybe someone has been a long-term Lux player, right? And they spent time learning 2 other champions. They could probably also have Lux on the side and have that as a 3rd champion in plat, because it won't take any of their mental stack. They've got so much mastery on that champ. It doesn't really occupy that 3rd slot. So it does get a little bit more nuanced than that. But yeah, very similar framework. 3 in diamond ideally. And then 4, you can have 4 or 5 in master or whatever. But same. So that's good that we align on that. Let's get into what you said. What was that we just spoke about? Then we spoke about
champ pool cycling.
Champ pool cycling. No, I want to talk about the difficulty of champions. Okay, so I believe that you cannot maintain multiple complex champions inside of a pool. So I'm going to speak through mid. You can talk through the jungle lens in a second. So if I'm in diamond, and I'm a diamond, maybe a diamond 3 player.
Wait, can we quickly define
complexity?
What makes a difficult champion?
Okay, there's 3 things that dictate the complexity of a champion. The first one is the mechanical execution. The second one is how their ability to separate fundamentals. And the third one is reference point clarity.
So that's the way that I talk about number 3. You're talking about how clear
is our identity, essentially.
These clear as identity. It's
That's right.
Play around your alts.
So
That's
think about a
one.
champion like Malzahar, how clear that identity is, what your weaknesses and your strengths on a champion like Malzahar or Lux or something like that is incredibly straightforward. It's
there's only really one way to be fighting.
Yep. It's like I'm a squishy mage that has some utility. It's very obvious what I want to do. If I enter a fight, I know that I got to sit back at a distance, do my damage. I'm not flanking, doing anything sophisticated. Take a champion like Silas. Silas is a champion that has very unclear reference points. What do I do if I'm a Silas player? Do I go in? When do I go in? How do I go in? When should I use my E? When should I not? It's not very clear what my reference points are. That's why I don't recommend learning the game through a champion like Silas, because your reference points are all screwed up. And I will talk about the other one, which was ability to separate fundamentals. A champion like Yasuo, right? The reason he's not really good for learning the game, why it's quite complex, is because trading and wave management are combined. You can't trade without eating through the minions. So you're always so on a champion like Annie, for example, I can queue the minion or I can queue the enemy.
You have a clear
I can manage the wave or I can
tree.
trade on the enemy.
Yeah.
So there are champions like similar to Katarina, right? Your bouncing blade. And same as Yasuo and Katarina, they don't have mana. So there's certain fundamentals that you can't really learn, or it's a lot harder to learn the fundamentals because they're combined. So that's the second one. And the first one is obviously mechanical execution. There are champions like, for example, like LeBlanc, a lot of like combos, mechanically intensive skill shots, that sort of thing. So they're the three factors that dictate complexity. So if I'm, say, Diamond 3, right, I will struggle to have 3 complex champions in my pool. If I had a pool like LeBlanc, Silas, Yasuo.
Yeah.
That is a very difficult pool to pull off. Even if it's good on paper and even if it ticks multiple boxes and it's balanced, whatever, you won't play enough games on each of those champions to hold them to such a high standard to genuinely push the ranks with them. So more often than not, what I tell players is that, okay, say for example in Plat, you can have a champ pool of 3, but I would not recommend 2 complex champions. I'd recommend maybe 1 complex champion, 2 simple champions. If you're in Diamond, you can maybe have 2 complex champs, 1 simple champ. You get the point. You want to balance complexity, simplicity, as well as size of the champ pool, and if you're going to have fun, if you have fun with the champions, and if they're well rounded in the pool, if they make sense in the pool holistically. So there's a lot there to unpack. And then the cherry on top is champ pool cycling, which is very, very important in the long run.
Do you want to go into that now?
Yeah, we'll go into this now. So me and you, we're big believers in long-term. League is a game, like a long-term game. It's not a game where you play for 3 months, you get a rank, and you piss off. It's a journey. It's a marathon.
Yeah.
It's not even one season. It's multiple seasons to achieve goals, right? We think in time spans of years, right? Yeah. Like we talk about casually. Okay, if you're a new player, it's going to probably take you 3 years to get to platinum. First year, 0 to 30 bot games, learning what the game does. Second year, get to gold 4. Third year, get to platinum. Like that's just normal. Like it's like, all right, that's like a pretty standard journey. 3 years, right? Now, champ pool cycling, right? Let's say you had a champ pool of a jungler, and let's say you played, let's say you were in Diamond, as a jungler, and you played Rek'Sai, Elise, and Volibear, something like that, right? Let's pull it out of my ass. What you can do throughout the season as the meta changes, or maybe you get bored of a champion, you can take one of them out, not all of them, one of them, add something else in. So you're not changing the entirety of your champ pool. All you're doing is you're adding one in, swapping one out. You still got the core champion. You still got maybe take out Volibear. You still got that Rek'Sai Elise. But now you've added in something that keeps you interested, something that's going to spike up your motivation, something that maybe is a little bit more suited to the meta at the time, whatever it might be. And over the long run, when we're talking months, years, seasons, and you do this for tens of champions, you start to develop a very sophisticated understanding.
You're building like a repertoire of,
that's right,
of things that you played a champion for like a little bit, you got rid of it from its pool pretty quickly, but then you still remember, you can pick it up pretty quickly. I guess an analogy, maybe the marathon analogy is bad because it's technically never ending marathon.
Right.
But like each like leg, you take something away from it. Yeah, you take something away from it.
Yeah, 100%. And so champ pool cycling has many benefits. Number one, it makes it easier to pick up that champion in the future. It makes it easier to pick up champions like that in the future, whether it's not the same, it could just be a style like that.
It doesn't completely sabotage seasons. You're suddenly like, screw all my champions. I'm learning all these new champions. You're still able to, win games and play at a really good level, or your current level, or whatever it is. You're not going to go jump, to go
0 to 100, right? Like you got this full champ pool and then you're going to 0. Yeah. And most importantly, it allows you actually increasing your knowledge of how to verse that champion. So this is why, by the way, this actually explains fundamentally, one of the reasons anyway, why there are players that exist that have played the game since Season 2 that are able to reliably autopilot to a high level in Grandmaster, even low Challenger, depending on the server, Master Tier, whatever. You look at a streamer, they're playing, talking to chat, they're a long-term player, they've played for thousands of games over years and years and years. Why is that the case? Why is that possible? Because they've champ pool cycled for 9 years.
Rolled cycled
for 10 years.
Yeah.
They've played every mid laner for probably 100 games each. So when you do that, the underlying muscle memory is insane. Not just you playing it, but you versing it. Everything's just anticipation.
Everything's connected.
Everything's interconnected.
Yeah.
So that is also why fundamentally these players who have played for a very, very long period of time, you cannot compare yourself to them
if you're a new player.
Because they're operating on a level of muscle memory that you will never be able to comprehend.
New player means you're started in 2019 these days. You're still a relatively new player.
Yeah, you're a new player. If you started in season 8, you're actually new.
Yeah, that's right. So it's really important to think about.
We're in season 13.
It's crazy, dude.
It like explodes my brain when I actually think about that. Season 13.
Yep. You were playing Gangplank in season 1, dude.
Playing GP in season 1.
So again, the context is really important. The way you think about it, and League is just a different game. It's not like Counter-Strike where you've always sort of known like how to you got to shoot people. Shooters are it's pretty simple. You got to kill people, right? So we got to really understand it. It's just going to keep building over the years.
Your repertoire, your understanding, your feel.
So yeah, I think that's a really good mantra to think of the game in terms of years, seasons, and not just like, oh, I'm going to pick up League and suddenly I'm going to be insane.
And that is the fundamental advantage of not being a one trick.
Yes, that's right.
Champ pool cycling will make you a better player over the long run, holistically, over a long span of time. So we covered everything with champ pool there?
Yep. What else for champ pool? There's something else I want to talk about. I guess champ pool, how it ties into meta. Let's go into there now.
So what's your take on meta, Nathan?
All right, so we had a note here. Number 2 was meta not mattering.
Okay.
All right. So this ties with what we said before about having fun. Having fun is really important. Mm-hmm. I mean, there is plenty of examples of one tricks from every server, pretty much almost every champion, I think, of getting to a relatively high level Diamond
Master.
1 Plus or Master. Yeah.
I'm gonna.
So that's just the fact out there. That's just that it's possible, right?
Let's talk about this.
Now, this is the question that people ask now. It's like, well, can't I just do it easier on another champion? Because that champion's really good or this build's really good.
Yeah.
And the answer is yeah.
Yeah, it will be easier. Yep. But again, we've got to think of it in terms of like long
term.
Run.
Yes.
If you're going to pick up a champion, let's say Maokai jungle's in the meta and you pop off a Maokai jungle and you end up going from Platinum 4 to Platinum 2 or Platinum 4 to Platinum 1. Sometimes that can happen. If a champion's really strong, you play a lot of games, it clicks with you, whatever, boom. Maokai gets nerfed. You drop it from your... It's unplayable or really, really, really weak. You drop it from your pool. You're going to go back to Platinum 4. What have you learnt? It's gone. All that champ mastery that you've just developed is gone. It's unusable.
Well, it's good, again, in a couple of years' time,
potentially. But if you had spent that entire time sticking to your Rek'Sai or whatever it is, the champ that you were actually planning on sticking to, that champ pool, and you climbed and maybe you only went from Plat 4 to high Plat 3... you're still light years ahead of. You're actually all that time. You're not being moved, and if anything, your champ might slowly come back into the meta, or it might be not as bad in a month or two, and then you're primed, ready to go. And remember, this is what I always tell people: in League, you're only ever learning one of two things. You're either developing champ mastery, or you're learning the game. That's it. Pick. Which one do you want to do?
Yeah. And it's always in the order. It's always champ mastery first.
Always champ mastery first.
Because
always.
You need to understand how to pilot your champion to be able to then have the mental stack free to learn, to read the map, feel game pace, and then not having to think about your champion.
Right. Think of it in terms of an analogy. You can't learn how to race a car until you learn to drive a car. So step number 1 is learn how to drive a car, and then we can figure out what we can do with the car. But we got to figure out first how to drive the goddamn car and how the car works.
Perfect analogy.
Right? And so, you're only doing one. This very important mantra, very simple. You're either developing champion mastery and learning a champion, or you're learning the game holistically. Very, very simple. Going back to the meta, the reason why so I believe meta starts to matter at master. Okay? Now, the reason this is the case, let's say Lux gets a buff on an E. Or no, so let's say Lux gets a buff on an E for an additional 40 damage, right? People think, okay, well, great. That's a great buff for Lux. That's actually pretty significant, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to play Lux. You look at the people who play Lux, who pick it up, they're missing 50% of their E's anyway. If you were to land one more Lux E, you've already made up the difference by far on the buff that happened to the champion anyway. So meta and stats and patches and stuff doesn't matter. Build doesn't really matter until you are playing the game to a high level and everyone's playing pretty optimally. That's when it matters. That's when it's significant. So it definitely has an impact. Don't get me wrong, it definitely has an impact, and it will make the game easier. And it is important to have a versatile champ pool that it can adapt to, metas and stuff like that. But more often than not, you're better off just developing champ master on the champ that you play.
Going to champ mastery as well, people might think that they have a lot of champ mastery. Here's a story. Remember we did the Trinity Force podcast, Curtis? We did that a while back, and we had, I can't remember who was one of the hosts there. He was a Vi player, and we had a discussion, and he sort of said like, oh, like I know, like I'm really good at Vi, like, but like I'm still like learning the game and stuff like that. And I posed a question to him. I said, are you really like champion master? He was a silver player, I think, or bronze or something like that, silver or bronze.
Yeah.
And I really questioned that because I've actually made a Vi guide recently, right? And I have had people comment on the Vi guide. So I only played 35 ranked games to make this Vi guide. I thought I was ready to go. And I had people in the comments, like master tier Vi players, say, oh, wow, like I never thought about the queue that way. Or, these are players that have played hundreds of games of Vi. So obviously I'm a more experienced player, and I played against Vi's, and I just have a sort of an understanding just how to fight anyway at a high level. But I pose that question when people think about maybe moving or maybe add in or maybe drop in a champion. It's like, are you really understanding this champ mastery wise? Because people could also fall into the trap of, oh, I've got the champ mastery underway, tick. I just need to like learn the game, but they're still missing so much of champion mastery. So really important to not just get tricked like that bronze host on the, saying like, I bet you I could review his game and he's making all the Vi mistakes. In my Vi guide, I have a 15-minute section. No, I think it's like 30, 40 minutes about every mistake a low elo Vi makes. I bet you he's making every single one of those. You're not even close to understanding Vi from the get-go. So that's really important as well.
It's a great story. I'll tell you another story that kind of runs along this one as well is I was coaching a master Syndra player and, pretty long-term Syndra player. Get into the review and the guy's making basic Syndra combo mistakes. Like he's going for the max range QE. He's like rushing his E every time. Like it's just super linear. It's like walking up QE, and he's not hitting any of them. And then I'm like explaining like, this is so obvious. And then he's like, wait, what the hell? Like he
probably thought he was insane at Syndra.
Yeah, he said he couldn't see this in his own reviews because you know why? Because there was so much muscle memory. He's played the champ so many times that you overlook the basics. What happens when you play a lot of a champion is that you believe that your problems are super sophisticated and complex.
That's right.
Because you overlook the basics because you've automatically got those hundreds of games. So you don't think that the basics of what's holding you back. But and it was just that outside perspective that I'm like, dude, this is just basic Syndra, like this is basic stuff. And he's like, yeah, you're actually spot on. Holy crap, I can't believe I'm doing this. I didn't see this. Holy, I should stop rushing my E, which is like something that, you could learn in any rank, right?
I wonder if he would be able to review a Syndra VOD, someone else's, say you're doing that, and then he still would miss that. That'd be interesting.
And the reason I spoke about this, and the reason this is the case and why it happens, we play League using heuristics. Right, so heuristic is like a term that basically we use in we operate on daily basis in real life. Like I think it's like I might butcher. It's like 90% of our daily life is using heuristics. Like and heuristics are basically shortcuts or like little easy way or like general rules of thumb that we can apply so we don't need to occupy our mental stack. Because if we had to sit there and do everything on a daily basis and analyze,
have to make a decision every time.
If we had to make a decision for everything, okay, is this one hot or cold? Should I enter the shower now? Yes or no? Like
brushing my teeth. Should I brush my teeth? Like what's the technique?
You're just operating on muscle memory, right? But when you play League, you're playing hundreds and hundreds of games. And what happens, you're subconsciously creating heuristics. And I'll give you an example of one in League, right? If you are full HP in lane, you have a lot of resources, most of the time, you're probably just going to stay. You probably don't need to base. That will work as an overall general rule of thumb a lot of the time. 85% of the time, 90% of the time, that's going to be the case. But League is a game about specifics, and there are going to be times where that heuristic bites you in the ass. But oftentimes it's very difficult to spot these mistakes because they're so deeply ingrained, these habits, and they work.
They work
a lot of the time.
The reward system is like, oh, I should do this because it gets me results.
That's right. They work most of the time, and then that one time that it doesn't, it's very difficult for them to spot that mistake. So a
great example as well for jungle is I always talk about reset on your first ideal base, right? Really important. It's like usually it's like 1100 gold for items like Dirk or Iron Whip Spike or something like that. But there's some cases where your pathing just happens or whatever happened in the game that you should actually break that rule, stay on the map, clear your top camps, reset on 1500 gold so then you can get back bot for the dragon spawn rather than resetting and going straight back top and clearing top to bot because you're like already near your raptors or anything anyway. So that's a really important, like huge tempo, like you can save 20, 30 seconds of map pressure. But people always follow that rule sometimes too much.
Yeah, an example for this client that the heuristic he had was tying back to this reset one. He roamed bot, got a kill, had enough gold to buy his item, but because he was full resources, he just walked back mid, got the wave, then reset.
Yeah, got it.
You could have just reset right now. It would have been way more efficient.
The muscle memory is that if I'm full HP and full mana, I don't need to base.
That's right. And so it's very difficult to spot these in the review. So the advice I give, and this is why we talk about the specifics. So if something feels off or like something negative happens, so in that situation, he lost tempo and blah, 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 you can go back and be like, okay, and we'll get into this later review process, but you can basically identify where it went wrong and you need to address this heuristic. Why did I do this? Like, why did I think that this was the right thing to do? And the question, and ask yourself.
Curiosity, I actually had a whole conversation with Saika about his review process for Curiosity because he was missing a lot of these things. And, when something, you got to be curious. It's
that's
really important.
Of the BBC is curiosity, honestly. If you do not fundamentally have curiosity and you feel entitled, you will not learn and climb in League. You
experiment. Think about other things you could have done in the game, even if what you did was right. Like, what if I do this? What if I do that? Anyway, we get into the review process maybe a little bit far later. All right, so that's that was a flowing conversation, I think, from Meta, was it? All right, we've got 15, we're up to 3 pairs. All right, so our third one here. We could.
We've got to be careful here because this could go for 17 hours.
Owning identity and having fun important. So I guess this is sort of tied on. So
it's the same. Having fun, yeah, right. It's the same thing, right?
Well, this one's actually different. So this is owning. The keyword is owning your identity.
Right.
Right? Because what a lot of people do is they feel that they might be falling behind the meta or their champion or something like that.
They get shamed by friends.
Yes.
It's like you only climb because you play Yumi or you play whatever. It's like, if that's what you like to play, if you want to play the game through the lens of Katarina, then screw everyone else.
Don't you have the Cal Casey example?
Yeah, Cal Casey, he climbed on Vigar, right? Was it? And just felt...
Your advice to him was owning his identity. Once he did that, he got results.
Yeah, he got results, yeah. But he would also feel like...
What were the narratives?
I think if I can remember correctly, it was something along the lines of like, I just feel like... Yeah, people flame me and shit like that. He just got flamed for playing Viagra and stuff. Like, who cares? If this is what you're good at and this is what you enjoy, then do it. But it's easier said than done.
It is.
Especially for a lot of impressionable, younger people. In society, we tend to care a lot about the opinions of others. And obviously, as you get older, that is easier to deal with. But especially for the younger audience, you can understand and empathize why that is the case. Especially if it's coming from your friends and your peers. And your friends in your friendship group are saying... Oh yeah, you only got to platinum because you played Malzahar and you have no mechanics, or and at the end of the day, over time, it's like, well, okay, cool. I'm happy doing what I am. I'm higher ranked than you, so it's like, who cares?
Yeah, you got to own it.
You need to own it. That's my identity.
Yeah,
that's how I enjoy the game. Then that's how you. Because remember, and this is one of the messages we push: League is your hobby. It's not anyone else's hobby. It's your hobby. You don't play League for anyone else. You spend your time after work or after study or after school, whatever it might be, because you want to, not because someone else wants to, because you want to. So it's you have to spend, you want to get the most satisfaction and enjoyment out of it because it's your hobby. And this ties into, I would say the philosophy that has saved me mentally last year the most, which is the blank canvas analogy. Every game is an opportunity to express who you are on the Rift. You're going to paint on this blank canvas, express your best self, do what you can. Doesn't mean it's perfect. It's just, and then you left your signature on it. Boom, great. And you can look at it at the end, and be like, oh, okay, that's what happened. Oh, yeah, I could maybe refine that
pretty
next
shitty
time.
strokes there.
Yeah.
Chuck it in the back.
Yeah, put it in the back. New canvas,
new
boom,
game.
go again.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that no one in the world will play that game like you.
Yep, it's your painting.
It's your painting. No one else. You can get inspiration from other people. People can get other inspiration from you. No one will be able to replicate your clicks, your decisions, because everyone has a unique league journey, which is, I think, what we should segue into.
That is next.
League journey, Nathan.
All right, so league journey, we've got in brackets here the SoloQ contract. So this is understanding what you sign up for when you play ranked.
These are two separate things. So I think what we start with is understanding your gaming background and league journey.
Okay, let's start with that.
So as we all know, we've all come from different places. Some people are hardcore console gamers, played PlayStation as a kid, Xbox, Nintendo, whatever it is. Other people are hardcore PC gamers. Some people had a large background in MOBAs, Dota, Hon, whatever. Some people, FPS background, World of Warcraft background, whatever it might be. When you start League, you need to understand that everyone's journey is unique because of this fact. If Nathan probably had an easier time picking up League than me, because Nathan played WoW and he used the QW. I mean,
just like abilities and
you knew how to cast, like press your finger. Your hands were actually placed
versus WASD.
Yeah, mine were WASD from FPSs. So when I started playing League, I had to look at the keyboard. I literally had to look at the keyboard, like look up, then look down, then look up to make sure my fingers were on the right keys. I guarantee you, yours was not really like that. You just knew. It was
I knew there's like key bindings and use 1, 2, 3, 4 and Q.
I never used key bindings like that.
Yeah.
I would only use WASD, F for crouch, and then shift for walk, and then spacebar for jump. That's it. That's all I'd ever used. I'd never played any other game. When I played Guild Wars, in Guild Wars 1, I clicked my abilities straight up. No word of a lie. I clicked my abilities. That's how bad I was with this sort of stuff. So that's an example, my league journey versus Nathan's league journey based off our gaming backgrounds. So if you're starting out in League and you have no PC experience, if League is your first game, this is what I tell people, you are doing two things. You are simultaneously learning League, but also learning how to play a PC game. An online multiplayer PC game. You're learning how to use a mouse and a keyboard
from
in
scratch.
an online environment, as well as learn the game of League. That's why League is so bloody hard for people that don't have a PC background.
And also as well, why there's such a disconnect with like the lower elo players, like iron players and bronze and stuff like that. They don't really put too much time in the game because they just get demotivated. And it's just they just can't grasp. They don't put in the time to grasp the movement that a lot of players take for granted, especially the PC gamers. Because they can just go on and instantly get gold or whatever. And that's usually what that bronze, iron, silver, get into that. Like past that, that's usually we always say it's like the test. It's like the test of like, can I control a mouse and keyboard to the basics?
Yeah, like a large part of getting to gold is
huge.
That. It's a huge part of it, yes. That is correct. So I think for all of you out there, you know, before you go comparing yourself to your friends, before you go compare yourself to streamers or content creators,
or you go onto some like champ mains, Reddit things like this champion's OP. Like, don't worry, guys, you can easily get diamond in it in like, you know, easy peasy here, and then you don't get it. You sort of like there's lots of things that that person's missing saying, and don't get confused by it. You got to understand.
And I'm
going
going
to
to talk about this in a video soon, but if you think about, and this is what it really frustrates me. People who think people make out that League is easy.
That's
like
right.
That's like a big narrative that's pushed. Like League's easy, like you know, anyone can play it. If you break down a single trade in lane, there's like 9 things that someone's doing. They have to look at the enemy character. They have to understand what the enemy character does, their ranges, their abilities. They have to understand their own ranges, their abilities, their cooldowns. If they have mana, what's happening with the minions, if anyone else is around them. There's the
HP of the minions.
The HP of the minions, how threatening they are, how strong they are with their items.
Did you say the HP and mana of the enemy in your team?
HP and mana of the enemy. There is literally like 12 things or 9 things that is happening subconscious at a muscle memory level with someone who's played a lot of the game. But we just take for granted. If you play, and this is what I say, just ask your friends, ask these people, how many games of League have they played? Normal games, ARAMs, ranked, flex, all together. Most people who've played for multiple seasons, thousands. Literally thousands. There's thousands of hours. Well, no shit, they can do all this stuff, and why they think the game is pretty easy. You do anything for thousands of hours is going to be pretty bloody easy. So this is, again, tying back to understanding your league journey in your gaming background. SoloQ Contract, Nathan.
All right, so we have an entire episode on the SoloQ contracts. We'll sort of summarize it a little bit then here, I guess. Essentially, what that episode is all about is understanding when you hit that ranked queue up button, what you need to be, like, what's your perception of what everything around you is going to happen. Like, what's the teammates? How am I going to interact with my teammates? Why do my teammates make mistakes? Why do my teammates tilt? Why do my teammates make the decisions that they do? Knowing that I am going to win and lose, some games are going to be out of my control. I don't think we talk about the 30-40 rule in there.
We get into
That's
that.
A huge part of the SoloQ contract.
I'm parched right now, Martha. This aircon is like sucking the moisture out of my mouth right now. Charles, emergency. I'll keep talking while I get some water. Hi, everyone.
So the 30-30-40 rule, important part of the SoloQ
essentially
contract.
what the SoloQ contract is, in a very simplified way, is it's a tool for managing expectations.
Yep, that's a good way of putting it.
Charles.
It's a good summary.
That's all it is. And because when we go into league, when we play league, and there are all these narratives that exist that we need to counter because, league's a bloody hard game, and there's a lot of bullshit. Okay, people get angry. You're not going to get your role. You're not going to get your champion. You're going to lose games that are completely out of your control. People are going to lose games for you. You're going to make game-losing mistakes. You're going to get flamed. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong at one point or another, right? What the SoloQ contract is this invisible contract that we've all signed when you create your account. And this is actually what Riot they really should introduce.
I think that's what popped up from the episode, is thinking about how such a big misunderstanding.
What should Riot tell you before you head into league as a game? That things that they should tell you, but they won't tell you, because if they told you this, you probably wouldn't play the game.
Yeah,
right?
It sounds
in a way.
It probably doesn't sound
too appealing.
Unless you play the game.
Unless you understand the beauty of the game.
Yeah,
that's right. And so that's why. And so the SoloQ contract, like you said, is I will lose games even though I play perfectly. I will not always get my role. My champion will be terrible in a meta. I will get flamed. I will have to use the mute all function. Someone will try to add me after a game and flame me. I will get flamed for my OPGG. XYZ, the list goes on forever, right? There are all these things that can happen. Obviously, there's plenty of positives. We're not talking about positive. We're talking about managing expectations of the negatives so that when this shit happens, we're not really...
You're not confused, scratching your head, or it's about understanding them, right? So if we have an understanding, we're like, oh, you're sort of expecting it to come. It's like, oh, well, that makes sense why he's doing that, or that is that. It's like, I lost this game for my team. It's like, well, I'm not a pro player, so I guess I'm just going to have to figure out how to work on that and improve. And I guess everyone's flaming me, but this is my level of play. This is the reality.
And even though it's incredibly difficult to do,
it is hard.
There is always a reason why they are acting the way they are. And I think the longer you play League as well, you kind of realize it makes sense why that person is angry.
Yep.
They probably don't. And this is my toolkit for this. When you play a game of League, you are only playing the game through your very narrow lens. Like, I'm on my computer playing my champion, right? And there's things that I want in this game. So if I'm playing Cassiopeia, there are particular boxes that I, as an individual, want to tick. There's also a Gwen on my team on top side that has things that she wants to do. She's looking into the game through her narrow lens. Well, obviously, if I have my narrow lens and she has her narrow lens, both of us aren't able to see the big picture in the game. So if she gets angry about something, I probably won't be able to understand it immediately in that game because I'm not able to see the game through her lens in that game. I'm focusing on my own staying in my lane for now. It's not until after, when you get into the review, you can just look at the way the map played out and what happened and be like, oh, yeah, it actually kind of makes sense why that Gwen might be a little bit angry here. It makes sense. Like, maybe the jungle traded them off, blah, 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 blah. Or maybe they made a little bit of a mechanical misplay, ruined their lane. It could be any number of things. My point being is that we all are looking at the game through one narrow lens. And so when you're looking at the game through one narrow lens, you're not able to see the big picture.
And
so you need to be humble. And
you have to be humble, because the moment you're not, guys, and you're just thinking it through your narrow lens, you're going to get really frustrated,
yes.
angry, tilt. It's going to be bad.
That's right.
And this is how people sabotage their seasons. These is the people that drop, from Platinum 4 to Gold 4. This is reason why it happens, is why people quit the game. But it's so important to understand these things, and why that episode is so important, because Riot don't tell you this. They don't make it clear, which is so much confusion in the community.
Yep, 100%.
Another one as well is more in-game specifics for the SoloQ contract. Because, you talk about, I guess the way that I think about it is that try and get to a point where you're not confused by anyone's decision making in-game, your team or the enemy team. One thing that I always talk about in reviews is, because you can actually use this to your advantage. Understand the SoloQ contract is about actually using it to your advantage against the enemy team. So a lot of the time it's like laners greeting for the next minion wave.
If you can understand their behavior really
their
well,
psychology,
you can abuse that.
You can abuse it.
100%.
And that's just about, understanding League and reading the game. Another one is like, people love kills in League of Legends. Let's say there was the obvious example of let's say there's only one laner showing on the map right now of your team. Where's the enemy team going to fluctuate for? It's mid-game. They're all going to be running to that person because they're like, oh, that's the only person that I can see on the map. I'm just going to run in and kill them. You can use that to your advantage.
And
stuff
maybe
like
counter
that.
Baron or Baron.
Or just be there and just guys like spamming counter gank, and then then we can kill them all. So it's not just a contract to be like, prevent tilt, all this stuff. It actually wins you games.
You know what I will say is that one of our key messages on the BBC that fundamentally helps with tilt and frustration is having a deep respect for the difficulty of the game.
Very important.
When someone makes a mistake on my team, it's like my instinct, obviously I feel, okay, I'm not a robot. I feel like, oh, that's a bit annoying, right? There's no doubt I feel, oh, it's a bit annoying, it's a bit frustrating. But you got to get to the point where it's like, it's like no judgment. It's like, okay, they made a mistake. It's normal for someone to make a mistake because the game is so bloody hard. Their mental stack is so preoccupied. There is so much information. There are so many things happening every millisecond that they're bound to miss something. You're bound to die at one point or another because the game is so bloody difficult. When you have a deep appreciation for the difficulty of the game, when someone dies or makes a mistake, you're not going to get so amped up, right? You're not going to get so jacked up because it's like, oh, okay, something probably happened and it makes sense, right? And so I had a client the other day, and every mistake that his teammates were making, he was judging.
Yep.
He's like, that's bad,
Yep.
this guy's bad, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it's like, when you're in this toxic judging mentality, you just don't have respect for the game.
And there's going to be no improvement going on.
No.
You're a victim. It's victim mindset.
It creates a victim mindset. So yeah, and that is also why when we coach clients, a lot of the time, like I remember now comparatively to 3 years ago, a lot of the time I'm like, oh yeah, I'll probably make that mistake as well. I can see where you're coming from here. That makes sense. But I remember when we first started coaching, we'd be more inclined to be like, oh yeah, you shouldn't do that. You should do this. And like you enter that very judgmental mode. But if you actually put yourself in their shoes, and if I were them directing my attention where you are, it's like, oh yeah, I could see myself making that mistake. And again, that comes from having an appreciation for the difficulty of the game and the mental stack and the execution element of the game, which is very important.
All right, next one here. This ties in the 1v9 mindset. I think we have a episode on this. We called it something else.
I can't remember what it was. People ask me about this all the time.
You're the hero of the game or something like that. People get into the mindset because the narrative is that my team sucks. I have to be the hero. I have to make all the plays. I have to be making plays versus the mindset of just doing your job.
Yes.
Very important to distinguish the two because the 1v9 mindset, League limits you so much in that regard. Like it's technically
okay. Let's just first define the 1v9 mindset.
Yeah.
Right?
So what is the 1v9?
So the 1v9 mindset is hilarious because think about it. It's like it's not just 1 versus 5.
Yeah,
it's 1 versus 9. So your teammates are also out to get you.
They're actively trying to lose the game. I always forget about that part because it's so ridiculous to me, but that's true. It's the 1v9 mindset.
It's like you're versing everyone in the game. It's like everyone versus me and. And it's ridiculous because your team's also trying to win for the most part. There are going to be some outliers, but for the most part, your team's trying to win as well. They're just making mistakes and the game's hard.
That's just their level of play.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That is just their level of play. They don't know what to do. What is very easy to misconstrue someone like looking like they're trying to lose the game versus they just genuinely don't know what to do. That's where tilt comes from. The biggest cause of tilt comes from not knowing what the hell to do. Like if you're in a game state, confusion. If you're confused, if you don't know what the next course of action is, what are you going to do? You're just going to spaz out and be like, I don't know what to do.
Your emotions, your first instinct is just going to come out.
It's just frustration. Yeah. So yeah, the 1v9 mindset is essentially everyone's against me. I need to go above and beyond to make up for the incompetence of my team, to be a hero, to win and carry all these useless people on my team.
And it works.
That's what the 1v9 mindset
it works so much against you because then you're forcing plays, and you're just. One of my favorite mantras is the harder you force, the quicker you lose. The more patient you are, the quicker you win. It's so true in League of Legends, don't you feel?
Yeah, I think patience is incredibly underrated. A lot of the time people will likely stumble over themselves. What I will say here is that for me, the biggest reason the 1v9 mindset is toxic is because it detaches you from reality. If you come in, right, to a game and you've got this 1v9 mentality, what are you likely going to do? You're more inclined to screw your teammates. Don't help your team in that specific situation, or do what's only good for you and not what's good for the team.
Which is interesting because that's actually incorrect. Like that's a false fallacy. Like playing with your team is actually selfish sometimes.
Sometimes,
it can be actually selfish. It's like that actually, I'm going to use my team as a bait to get a triple kill.
That's right. Think like that. But I would say it also manifests in the sense that you're maybe going to split push. That's the classic, thing in 1v9. You got to split push, farm 10 CS per minute, and then you carry, right? So that when you're in this 1v9 mindset, you're in actually fairyland. You're actually not adapting to what's in front of your face. When in real proper League of Legends gameplay, optimal League of Legends gameplay is when you're seeing what's in front of you and you're just simply doing the best, making the best decision in
that your champion's capable of doing with your current goal, your items, your scoreline.
And just doing your job. That's really what League of Legends is about. League of Legends at the most fundamental level is that every champion has an identity. And it's your duty to identify what your job is in this game and do it to the best of your ability. That's it.
That's it.
That's literally
and
it.
It's really important, guys, because people will think now it's like, oh, well, like my champion sucks, or like my role is weak. So there
has to be someone playing it.
The line
so
is...
all you got to do is play better than your opponent.
Yeah, so the line is that if you do your job well enough consistently, you will climb in League of Legends. Doesn't matter what role or mostly what champion player.
What I realized, this is funny, this is a bit of a tangent, but I think it's funny. When I was a kid, I thought in football that the goalkeeper was the shittest role. Like, I thought when I was a kid, like, in football or soccer, that, like, I always wanted to be the striker. Yeah, I wanted to be the one that scores the goals.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's in the same thing as league. It's about the kills.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was watching the World Cup, I'm like, goalkeepers are broken by concept. You can carry as a goalkeeper.
If you do your job insanely well.
If you don't let any goals in, you can just never lose.
Yeah.
Literally never lose. You can at least at minimum go even. And I was watching the World Cup and I'm like, wow, these teams that have great goalkeepers, they literally would win the game for the team because often games would go to penalties and they would win the game for the team as a goalkeeper. And I'm like, if I were to go back in time, I want to be the goalkeeper. But when I was a kid, that's not how I thought. How I thought was, I want to be the one scoring, the striker, score the goals. But notice how that's that shift in perspective in league is the same thing. We now know the best, the most sexy way to win is as well. Like, it's not just the one getting all the kills. It's kind of just
tiny of invisible advantages.
Small wins. And slowly helping, making the game as easy as possible for your team to win.
And it's difficult for the enemy team to win as possible, which is invisible.
It's invisible.
It's invisible.
So goalkeepers, again, it's not sexy, but it really can carry games.
Being 0-0, a goalkeeper could have played out of his mind, but it's not sexy. It's invisible.
It's invisible.
You know? Like that goalkeeper was the best goalkeeper in the world, but it's 0-0.
That's right. So I just thought that was a really interesting kind of parallel.
That's a really good analogy. I like it. All right, so we're happy with that one?
Yeah.
All right, so we're up to number.
So following on from that, people ask, well, how do I know what my job is? Well, that's what ties into champion mastery. When you have a lot of champion mastery, you got to become the champion, right? How should I think as my champion? What is my champ's strengths and
At every
weaknesses?
stage of the game, it changes. It fluctuates.
What does my champ
well.
get countered by and why? What does my champ synergize with and why? What situations does my champion feel really good within?
Yeah.
Over time, when you play a lot of your champion, you'll be able to increase the likelihood of putting yourself in these situations.
Yep.
Very important.
Great stuff. All right, next one here is DuoQ.
Ooh.
Now, this is a highly questioned topic, and some people do enjoy the game that way. So my stance, I don't know if your stance has changed at all, Curtis, but we actually had a conversation in SoloQ recently. One of our new members asked about DuoQ for the new season. I'm absolutely against Duo. I've never, ever seen someone improve from DuoQing. That's my experience. The reasons being is that super easy to get into the most obvious narrative. It's like we have to play. It goes back to the 1v9 mindset. Now it's like 2v8, right? So it's like it's just me and him. I got to play around that person all the time, which could not actually be the right decision to make in the game. So it's really easy to be just completely like having the complete wrong read of games very easily. Communication, obviously, you're probably on Discord or on call with each other, and the communication is going to be making you actually each other worse because you're going to be saying things that you feel like you're like working together and like really smart about the game, but really you're just overflowing that person's mental stack or overcomplicating the game because you watch Worlds and you think, oh, you just got to communicate to win the game. What else DuoQ is really bad for?
Well, for me, fundamentally, the main deterrent of DuoQ is it ruins the learning cycle.
Ruins the learning cycle.
Right? Learning in League is literally as simple as you make a decision, you get a outcome, you review that outcome, and then you change your behavior. Right? When you duo, it's not you making that decision a lot of the time. A lot of the time, it's someone else's decision. It's someone else has influenced that decision. So you can't own the learning because someone else is having the learning for you.
Great. I've talked about this example before. One of my SoloQ members, Janet, she's playing Diana Yasuo duo. She was the Diana. She went to clear top camps because simply her Yasuo said, oh, I don't need you at this fight. And then they get triple killed, and then she obviously should have gone to that fight because she could have easily read the numbers advantage there. Stuff like that,
Same thing.
And then I said at the end, it's like, well, what do we learn here? And then
what do we learn? Whose learning is it?
There's
there's no learning to be had. and this is as a mid laner, right? If your jungler says, "Oh, watch out, the jungler's coming from bot side," sure, in that specific instance, it's great. But in the long
it's
run,
going to hurt you.
You get no value because you're not coming to that conclusion. You're not improving your jungle tracking. You just got compensated for in a way. So what I say with DuoQ is if you're doing DuoQ, if you want to like get better and improve and learn, DuoQ is not what you should do. So if you're interested in learning, improving, that sort of thing, don't DuoQ. If you don't care about learning and improvement and you're just playing to have fun and you're just dicking around,
DuoQ is fine.
DuoQ is great.
Yeah.
So that's my take.
But don't be confused if you have like 100 games of duo in the season, you didn't end the rank that you wanted to.
That's right.
That's the key message because people sometimes conflate their duo and their rank solo, and then they think about the end of the year. It's like, oh, I didn't reach my goal. And then I always go back to, well, what happened here?
Yep.
It's not confusing.
That's right.
And again, I've never seen anyone. You might see successful duo queues or like duo boosts, but those players are very good players usually. Like that's what people always see.
They didn't get that good by dueling.
No, that's right. Yeah, so they get really good solo first, and then you can duo and smurf on everyone. Sure,
that's right. It's like probably people who learn tennis. They didn't get good learning tennis in doubles. Like they're just two individual good tennis players that learn by themselves.
Beautiful analogy again. All right, Curtis, number 7. We're almost halfway. Ranked anxiety, Curtis. Now, this is a really big one, probably very prevalent
Very
as well.
quick one here.
Yep.
This is a very quick one.
Yep.
Ranked anxiety is essentially you feeling anxious, scared, fearful of queuing up because you're scared of losing LP or you're scared of getting flamed or whatever the hell it might be, right? It's like gym. It's the perfect analogy. When you first go to the gym, it sucks.
You got to get in there and suck. Embrace the suck is one of our mantras.
Rock up and do some shitty reps.
Yeah.
Right? Just
get no results.
Get no results. Just do that for 3 weeks. By the third week, you're like, oh, it actually feels kind of normal to go to the gym now. Like I don't really, there's not much mental baggage. That's what I do. That's what I've done for the past 3 weeks. That's what I just got to do. And then you just do it. It's very, the barrier to entry, whatever, it's just so easy to do.
Remove the decision making. Of actually getting into queue and ranked up. So what I see a lot of people do is they get into the client, they like go on Discord or whatever, something like that, and they're like staring at the ranked queue and then and they overthink it. It's like getting out of bed or something like that in the morning. You're like, if you just instantly just get out of bed, no thought, your brain hasn't actually convinced you to not get out of bed.
All you got to do is just do the thing. What's next? Like, what's the next thing that I have to do? Don't think about 3 steps ahead. Don't think about if you lose, if you win, if you don't. Don't think about that. Just press play. You pick a champion, do your job, end the game, review it, move on. And do that for 3 games. Stick to a schedule for 3 weeks. If you can do a block of 3 a day, even just for 5 days a week for 3 weeks, by the end of that 3 weeks, you will not have ranked anxiety. I guarantee you.
Yep. So I just want to cover the ranked anxiety for the more experienced players who peak at a rank, because that's more about new players or struggling to get into rank for the first time. So let's say Jim Bob, is that the analogy? The guy who's
I got someone in the MLA changed his name to Jim Bob.
Jim Bob. Jim Bob has just reached Diamond 4.
Yeah.
But Jim Bob has imposter syndrome because he thinks, I really struggle in the Diamond games. I think I might have just got lucky in my promo or something like that. Now they're going to think that they don't deserve the rank or whatever, and then if they just queue up, they're going to drop down. The answer might actually just be yes, but what are you going to do? This brings back to why are you playing the game? Like, do you actually want to keep climbing? Maybe that's it. Maybe you're going to be happy to be Diamond 4 or not. But if you want to keep playing the game and just you have to accept, because your level of skill is going to always reveal itself eventually anyway. The longer you just Diamond 4, you say, I don't want to play on that account anymore, you're just delaying the inevitable. So it's really important to understand, your psyche around, hitting peak ranks. Peak ranks can come and go very easily.
And do you want to look like a Diamond 4 player or do you want to be a Diamond 4 player? That's the real question.
An actual Diamond 4 player is someone that plays another 100 games in Diamond 4.
I love your take on that, which is, especially because people get anxious around placements, promos. And what you said, which is, don't aim for, if you're P1, don't aim for D4, aim for D3.
Yeah.
You want to become a D3 player. Yeah. You don't want to be a D4 0 LP player.
Because you're just going to be bouncing all the time.
And that will help you do that because you're not stopping at D4. You're trying to get to D3. And that's a really cool neat tip.
I always say that was my biggest mantra for Diamond 1 Master Promos players, because I tell them, if you hit Master 0 LP, you will drop instantly because you're not actually experienced. You're not actually properly a Master tier player until you get to 200 LP around, is my thought process. So really important to just be like, I'm just going to bounce and just think of it as like an extra little bit of LP, really. Like it really doesn't matter that much. And
I actually want to talk about this more holistically with climbing. I've noticed some people like to think in multiple divisions. Like they think, I want to climb... I want to get, if I'm gold, say I'm plat 4, I want to get to D4. They're thinking about D4 in plat 4. You only need to be concerned about getting slightly better such that you're getting from P4 to P3. You only need to focus on climbing 1 division at a time. Don't worry about climbing 4 or 5 divisions. If you think about that, you're going to lose touch of reality because people try to go from one extreme to the other. And they forget that it's just a process. You're just going just get a little bit better.
If you're thinking about all the rank and all that sort of stuff, just get into the game, have fun, make some great decisions, and the rank just appears, guys. It's really important. The more you think about the rank, the harder the game gets. I generally believe that. Every single time that I've had my best gameplay, I don't care about the result, the win or loss of the game. I'm purely just thinking about what's great decision making, what's the next best decision, what's the next objective, what's the next thing I got to do. We've got to reset tempo, speed, quick, and then the rank just follows. Good League of Legends is always rewards you guys. That's just the way it works. And obviously, we're not all crazy pro players right now, but that's what we're working towards. And, Diamond 4 gameplay looks like Diamond 4 gameplay. A Diamond 4 player isn't suddenly randomly a bronze player, even though people can think that they're bronze, but slow process over time, build it up. All right. Number 8. So this is a pretty meaty one now, Curtis, potentially.
Okay.
process. What's the BBC process? The importance of getting specific. Actually, let's start with why have a process. Why is process so important? So obviously the most important thing, Curtis, is what's the general way people have improved in the past is throw enough shit at war, eventually it sticks, and essentially that's playing as many games as possible. And what we do in Broken by Concept is compartmentalize games into 3-game blocks so we can understand our journey better. What are some other benefits? There's so many benefits of 3 blocks. Well, manage tilts, prevent sabotage.
Yeah, prevent loss streaks, and because like if you lose 3 games and you're ending the block at 3 games, you can't go and turn that into a 7 loss streak.
No,
right? That's one of the big ones. I actually got sent something from someone who's an Andrew Huberman listener, and apparently on Andrew Huberman he spoke about something how the way the brain works. It's like you can have spurts of like energy for like 90 minutes or something like that. And it's very interesting that we've said 3 blocks because that's a very similar amount of time, how the brain can like have optimal focus for like around 90 minutes or something like that. So, yeah, that is also coincides with that. It's a way of that your brain can't stay that focused with high intensity for a very long period of time.
So yeah, high intensity is really important in League of Legends, guys, because people disrespect the game. This is going back to the disrespect of the game. Because you need so much brain power and mental focus to just play one game of League of Legends.
But I want to talk about like okay, so everyone's process is highly personal, similar to their league journey, right? So there are a lot of people in the MLA that do 2-game blocks. They're working professionals. They don't have enough time at night. They just got to do a 2-block. Some people like to review after games. Some people like to review before blocks. I've actually experimented a lot with the before block method where I review all my games from the past day, the day before. That actually works really well. Some people like to review all their games at the end of the block. There is no one correct answer. Everyone is different. And as long as you have a process and you stick to the process that works for you, that is the most important thing.
Yeah, because you're going to create consistency. The brain loves, for me, schedule, consistency. I just feel like I get rewarded for it always. It just never fails me every single time. So the moment you start playing, like, I can't go to sleep until I win. Stuff like this, it actually just... It never feels good, guys, does it? Like, even if you win, like, and you go to bed, you're like, maybe, sure. But, it's just not going to end well for you guys. So the biggest mantra, here's a tip for you guys. I said last year, I wanted to learn how to feel comfortable leaving my computer after a 0-3 block. That's incredibly hard to do because you want to play. It's like, that was just a shit play. Even if it's like 3 really bad games, even if I imagine this is the point when I played 3 pretty good games where I felt like, I reckon that should have been at least 1 win. That was like maybe the thing that I would say to myself. But the ability to step away from that, you actually build so much discipline about the game, and just your relationship with the game just becomes way more healthy. So that's a huge tip for you guys. I want you guys to be comfortable leaving the computer after a 0-2 or 0-3 block.
I'm going to pose a bit of a challenge for the BBC listeners, all right?
Love it.
So this is what we're doing in the MLA. It's a 3-week challenge that's going on right now that's ending in the end of January in the MLA. Basically what this challenge is for people in the MLA, which was, I want you to write down a 3-week contract that you're going to hold yourself accountable to. So I'm going to read out what my 3-week contract is. And this is a great way to getting people started with the process and holding yourself accountable. Now, the reason it's 3 weeks is very important because if I were to say to someone, okay, Jim Bob, I want you to review every game for the entirety of the year. It's not going to happen because they're so overwhelmed and it's like, this is too much.
They haven't taken the first step. It's just too much.
It feels good to know that I only have to do this for 3 weeks.
It's like, that's manageable.
It's manageable, right? So this is my 3-week contract. Play in blocks of 3. Blocks of 2 and 4 are also permissible according to energy levels. Never blocks of 1 or more than 4. Review every game no matter what. It can be later if need be, but each VOD must be reviewed. Be aware of my champion pool at all times and never stray from the pool unless it is with the intention of actually swapping out picks. Never type unless it's helpful. Mute all at any sign of negativity. Don't try to look brave or strong. That's my small, short, sharp SoloQ contract. That's essentially my 3-week
Love it.
contract.
Yep.
And there's a lot of them. We have a channel in the MLA where people are sharing their 3-week contract. And so for BBC listeners, I think this is something that everyone can do. Write down something that you would love to stick to for 3 weeks. It's the start of the season. It's a great time to do that.
For someone that loves to champion hop all the time, a great one is I'm just going to stick to one champion for 3 weeks, no matter how much I hate it or something.
Great.
Try it out. Have a crack.
That's a great one. So it can be, and the idea, guys, is that this is something it's challenging, but not too challenging. And the key word is sustainable. It must be sustainable. You must be able to do this for 3 weeks. You might think that, I can do this for 1 or 2 days. But no, you have to be able to do it for 3 weeks. So it has to be sustainable. Challenging, but not too challenging. That's the key to this one.
So for people, new listeners that want to know what the 3-block process is, so that's our general advice, 3 game intervals, because as we said, that's what we found is the best amount of time for you to be able to focus, have intensity, and get the amount of games in that you need to improve at the game. So it's play game, maybe you can review, again, the review wherever it is, but this is my general advice is play game, review, play game, review, play game, review, and then at minimum an hour break in between the next block. And I say never do more than 3 blocks a day, which is 9 games. But for me personally, I mean, maybe it's just me getting older and stuff, but I will never play more than, when I'm following the process, 2-3 blocks. I also want to mention as well about my start of the season. So as I've talked about in the podcast before, I do a ritual to feel like a kid. It's like my way of having fun, to feel like a kid again, reminding me back of like WoW expansion launches, because especially when you're high elo, like on a server, everyone like races to get first tier to master or something like that. And I love to be part of that race. That's really fun to me. And my first day of the game, first day of the season, I played 20 games, right? And the next day, I thought I was still in the race maybe to get first tier, master tier, but then I lost like another 4 or 5 games, and I was like, okay, I'm out of it. And I felt so, it wasn't even fun compared to last year. And I instantly am like, okay, I'm just going back to the process. Like, it wasn't fun for me anymore. And I mean, I don't know. I might try it again at the next stage of the year, but probably not. But it just doesn't work, guys. And I literally said at the end of it, like my 25 games, between that 36 hours, I'm like, what did I learn? Because there was nothing I learned because I was in a race, right? Yeah. And I'm just having a crack. So it was a really, I was saying to you before, it felt like weeks, but it was literally 36 hours because I was like some time reality distortion. So it just doesn't work, guys. I just learned nothing. There was no improvement. I probably got worse. And then now it's obviously, back to the process. So
this is everyone on BBC. This is Nathan's confession.
Yeah.
So if you guys accept his confession, his apology, BBC, you guys can decide whether you forgive him or not.
I actually saw in the Midland Academy, people have like a phrase like, I'm going to Nathan it at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, that's what they call it.
Like, that's what they call it. It's like, I'm going to Nathan
and play 30 games or something.
It's not good, guys. It really isn't. Again, like the only reason I did it was because I thought it was fun, but I didn't even enjoy it. I was just like, what the fuck just happened? That's literally what I did. Like, after those 25 games, I'm just like, what? It was just like a blur. So that's a great example, guys, of when you don't have a process. I just felt like shit. Absolute shit.
You heard it here first.
All right. Anything else we need to talk about? We talked about why process is important, the 3-block process, different versions of your process. We talked about how everyone has their own version of the process.
Reviewing?
Oh, yes, reviewing. Okay. Well, this is a really good one.
Reviewing's very tricky to talk about, isn't it?
It is. So let's do some rough principles.
Well, number 1, learning objectives. I'm very passionate about not setting in-game learning objectives unless it has something directly related to like level 1, first wave, or lull states. That's it. I don't want to impede the mental stack of it. I don't want you to feel like your mental stack is overwhelmed. In the past, I've actually ruined clients by giving them learning objectives, in-game learning objectives that occupy their mental stack and make them play worse. That is not something you want to do. Most of your learning objectives are going to be things to observe in the post-game review. Very important.
That's great. Seeking a theme of what we've been talking about today, Curtis, is about trying to understand things. Reviewing is so important because it helps you to understand what just happened in the game. Because during a game, guys, it's so easy to miss things.
It's a blur.
you can miss so much. Even experienced reviewers like Curtis and I've done thousands and thousands of games. I miss things in my own games
Yeah,
specifically
sometimes
as
like,
well.
oh, that's what happened. I
Yeah.
thought something else happened. Like
Happened.
looking at it again, it's like, oh, I didn't see that. You know.
So that's why, like, people think it's like, oh, reviewing is just like this thing that Nathan Curtis say. It's just like this boring thing that they do. It's like, no, the key reason is actually to manage tilt in a way, just helping to understand what's going on. Because when we understand things, guys, we're more likely to be more logical.
I've got a video on my YouTube called, I think it's like something about feel and intuition, a muscle memory, or something about intuition, how to improve intuition. Highly recommend you give it a watch if you're interested in reviewing. I go deep on reviewing and review process and the importance of reviewing and how it works in that video. That's a great video for that. Yeah.
Another one here, Curtis. If you're new to maybe reviewing and you're a little bit intimidated, just simply skip to your deaths.
Deaths.
We always say
so much information in
there's
deaths.
unbelievable information in deaths. And as a jungler, I always say there's so much information in your lane as deaths as well. You learn so much about the game.
The way I view it really simply as well, if you're beginning to reviewing, imagine there's a timeline, minute 0, minute 35. There are probably going to be a handful of moments in that game that left you feeling a little bit confused. All you got to do is go to those moments that you were feeling a little bit confused and investigate and be curious, like Nathan said. That's right. That's a great starting point. A great starting point. It's a great first way to think about reviews.
And if you're new to reviewing, it's a skill. You're going to suck at it.
Yes, that's a very important point.
People always get intimidated and scared because Nathan and Curtis talk about reviewing and stuff like, oh, well, I can't review like Nathan, so what's the point of me reviewing?
We were terrible reviewers. I was actually, to be completely honest, I didn't review my games for years. It actually took me about until 6-ish years of playing the game to review. Think about that. 6 years.
I'm the same.
And even when people around me first started reviewing, I actually couldn't look at my own gameplay. I was like my ego or whatever it was. I fundamentally hated looking at my own gameplay. It took me years. Every year, actually, I get better reviewing. Every single year. Still to this day.
Absolutely.
So it's a skill that takes a very long time. And you are all going to suck at it at the start. I guarantee you.
And also, if you have a friendship group or in one of our programs, getting other people to review your games is helpful, even if maybe they're a little bit lower ranked than you or something like that.
Just being curious.
Get a more objective view of the game. All right, so that's all about process. Now, number 9, in-game versus out-of-game learning objectives.
Already covered that.
Covered that?
Yep.
Because that was your point?
Yep.
Number 10. Not copying high elo.
Okay. I'll cover this one here. I had a client who was a Yasuo player, and he was in high gold. And he said something very interesting. He said something, I watch a lot of high elo Yasuo players, PZ Zhang, things like that, and I try to just copy and emulate what they do. But, I'm not having success. And I reviewed his game, and it's just really overcomplicated, suboptimal decision making. And I straight up said, you cannot copy high elo players if you are in a lower elo bracket, because Korean Challenger is a different game to NA Gold or NA Platinum. One of them is Fortnite, one of them is StarCraft. They are literally different games. Even if you thought you knew what they were doing, I promise you don't know what they're doing and why. So and this will actually be a detriment to your games if you blindly copy. They are doing things that are catered towards what's happening in their games. For example, they will like pull waves and all this stuff happening, and the jungle will come, and the game will play out a very particular way. When you are looking at high-elo VODs, you should get very specific. Like look at ability usage. Look at just the basics. Really simple things that you can take away. How are they trading? What are they basically doing with their ability usage? How are they basically playing team fights? That is all.
So now we're basically just talking about champ mastery stuff.
Champ mastery stuff only.
You're only looking at champion specific things. So I'm confused. So he was looking at how to play Yasuo or how to play Yasuo in that type of game. Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, like holistic, like how to win a game with Yasuo. Yeah.
Okay.
Like how to win a game with Yasuo.
No.
And like he's trying to employ all these like advanced things in his games and just completely overcomplicating the game. And then what he said was this, he's really, really interesting. He said, in everything I've done in my life, I've gone to the best and just copied what they've done, and it's worked. And it does work in a lot of other industries. Think about it if you're trying to become a better car salesman. You'd look at the best car salesman, and you could probably copy the best car salesman, and that would get you a hell of a long way. At many other crafts, you can look at the best and emulate what they do, and that's going to get you to an extremely high level. League is not like that, actually, because again, the games that they're in is so different to what you're experiencing. There is a mismatch. There is a complete mismatch.
Yeah.
So I it's a word of warning to a lot of people. Please do not copy. You can gain inspiration. There are things you can take away, but please do not blindly copy what they are doing.
I guess
Same thing with the Rel King, with the Rel players. There's a lot of people that tried to blindly copy the way a Rel King plays. He plays a very particular way that works for him. And if you don't really understand the specifics, you'll dig yourself a massive hole.
So this is interesting. So this is because I think that the reason for that, Curtis, I'm just trying to think, is it because, like, let's say if you learn from the best, like someone cooking a dish or something, like that's like a skill that's just all on you. It's a one person skill. But is it the reason because that you have 4 other people, like you have 9 other players in the game?
That's one.
I think that's really important, right?
But also because the game... Okay, so in real life, whether it's cooking, the variables don't change.
Yeah,
like a tomato's a tomato.
Yeah,
right. Like
well, if you're learning to ride a bike or something,
yeah,
it's not going to turn into a car. You know,
nothing's going to change. It's like it is what it is.
Yeah.
But in League, every game is different, and a lot of the time when you're watching a Halo play, they're just adapting to what's happening in that specific game. They don't have like some cookie cutter formula where they split push at this minute or whatever. And if you try to just blindly copy what they're doing without truly understanding it, you're just going to overcomplicate it. And remember what we said at the very start, one of the first points here. In League, all you have to do is make the best decision in this particular game state. That's what League of Legends is all about. In this game, with these players, in this rank, on this server, there is probably a really good quality decision you can make.
A very high percentage, beautiful decision that will net you a positive lead.
And that's very specific to this game.
Yeah. Or not let you a positive lead, but also not lose you the game.
And remember, they're doing that for their server, and that rank with those players, with those tendencies. You know, it's so far distant to what they are experiencing.
Can you talk about the Magifelix example video that you talked about? Talking about how people tried to copy his Zillion.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people tried to copy Magifelix's Zillion.
He was rank 1 in EUS.
He was rank 1 in EUS. Yeah, and the thing is that only works... Okay, so like the fundamental way this worked at that time was he would basically play this super... like kind of fast-paced, roam-oriented style of Zillion where he would just basically ditch waves, stay bot, get these insane leads for his bot lane, even at the expense of like 3 plates mid, knowing that in mid-game, he could... Because his AD carries are so good that if he like... you know, put his ult on his AD carry and buffed up his AD carry and whatever, like they would win the fights anyway. But that was very intentional because at that time it was very AD carry centric meta. And he knows that, again, these are competent AD carries. They're not randomly going to get picked off. They're not randomly going to miss position. They know what to do. They're going to farm well. If you're trying that strategy in gold, that's not going to get you very far because, again, the people aren't competent to do that.
But also, they wouldn't be able to execute it as well because he knows when to roam, when the bot lane's going to be vulnerable, but a gold player is not actually going to be good enough
blindly
to read.
That's why he's reading the map and thinking, if I go now, if they're on that stacked wave, like, yeah, sure, I'll miss 2 plates, but we deny like 3 waves from them and we get 3 plates bottom on it. Yeah, it's very strategic.
Because I always hear people talk all about general strategies that players do. But the specific execution is actually very advanced going into it. And you miss so much if you don't
in League.
Play
This is a rule of thumb that you can apply to, again, 90% of things. The more general a question or the more general your statement is, the less useful and less practical it's going to be. Because League is a game of specifics. That's the reality of the game.
So important.
It's a game of specifics.
So important. We're going to repeat that again, guys. It's a game of specifics. Because I especially... It
doesn't matter what's happened a game ago, 2 games ago, the game before. It doesn't matter. Yeah. What's happening now in this game right here?
This is a trap. So, you know when people talk on Discord or Reddit communities and stuff like that, a really good rule of thumb, guys, is don't talk about a game or the game unless it's in front of you. Yeah. Like, just don't, please. Because it's just so general and you're not going to get any learnings from it.
Let's do an interesting experiment here, right? Let's take a question and we'll ramp it up in terms of specificity to make it into a good quality question.
Love this exercise.
How do I carry as Yone? The shittest question in existence, right? How do I carry as Yone? Okay, let's ramp it up a little bit. How do I carry with Yone into this composition? Still a bad question.
Yep. Getting there.
Getting there. How do I carry as Yone into this composition when I have a fed bot lane? Getting there. How do I carry with Yone into this composition with a fed bot lane?
And I'm even.
And I've got these 2 items.
Yep. Cool.
And then maybe the last one. Here's a clip. What do I do in this specific situation when my bot lane is like this? I have these items. This objective's coming up. Should I go here or there?
All right. So it's funny. We basically got to the end. It was just that you got to get to the clip. There's no talking about. That just did a long way of saying like we got to get to the clip. I thought you were actually going to say. Then again, it's like, how do I carry with Yone with the fed bot lane thing? And this person is there on the location of the map, and this person's there,
the clip,
and
right?
this dragon's up. You know, it's impossible to explain. So you can't explain it.
I guess the point, right? So the more general it is, the more useful it is.
Yeah.
That's why, in order to actually give someone a piece of advice, I have to see it.
Yeah.
I have to see what's happening.
It's so funny because this podcast is purely a talking about. We said like never talk about League of Legends unless there's a game in front of you, and we've just spent 132 episodes of talking about League of Legends.
Not many clips.
With not a single game.
Oh, there's some clips.
Yeah, we've done clips.
There's not many.
Just not many.
We're just frauds.
Yeah, that's the funny part.
Giant hypocrites.
Yeah. All right. So copy and high yellow. Yeah. So the Magic Felix. That's a really good example.
Yep.
Yeah.
Move on.
All right. Number 11. We're getting there, guys. High value versus low value deaths. This is your point, Curtis.
Yep. Okay. Very simple. If you die, okay, so let's pose a very specific situation. You're in. Okay, so everyone on your team is reset. You're the only one on the map, like in terms of like trying to, and you're pressuring, you're shoving your lane, and there is no reason for you to pressure. Like there's nothing you can get with the pressure. You've already got like you don't need to base. You've got your items. You're healthy, and you shove up and you try to get tower damage or something, and you die. That's an incredibly low value death. It was easy for them to kill you. You were really pushed up. They didn't have to spend much resources. Your team is nowhere near you. It's like you made it very easy for them to kill you, and
they didn't expend any resources. Time.
And your team can't even punish the enemy for showing on the map because they're not even on the map. And it's like a high risk, low reward death. Therefore, a low value death. A high value death is when you've kind of got a game where it's relatively even, and you're maybe you're in the side lane, you're in mid game, and you're pushing out the side, and you're like walking the tightrope, and you think, okay, they would have to expend like 3 or 4 members to kill me here, and if they do go to kill me, my team, I would buy so much time, it would be so hard to kill me that my team would be able to get plenty of things on the other side of the map. And they send 3 or 4 members. Your team gets Baron on the other side. That's a high value death with intention. It makes sense. You knew where they were, and you were difficult to kill, and you made it hard. That you bought a lot of time. They burnt flashes. They burnt ults. That's a high value death. So when we talk about Lee, we talk about the importance of not dying. Right? Deaths are very, very, very bad. Right? At the same time,
I'm just trying to think for examples for jungle. Like, it's so hard for me to think about high value deaths because that example, you just talk about an example for Baron and stuff like that, dude. Like, I need to be the jungle. I need to be alive for that Baron, dude, for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's a great death.
So I'm just saying that really specific moments. It's like, so you tower dive, you die, but you deny 3 waves, and your laning gets really far ahead.
Or you dive,
but that's more of an early game specific thing,
and sacrifice yourself to one-shot the enemy fed 80 carry.
And then it will be like a team fight examples. But again, guys, like if I'm trying to think about the ratio, because people might think, oh, that was a good death all the time. It's like it's pretty rare that there's like really good, like, I mean, I wouldn't say rare, but
that's the point I'm trying to make is that like, there is a difference, but it's important to think about deaths like that. Like, there
can be good deaths.
Like, was I very difficult to kill here? Because if you're very easy to kill, they just walk by, didn't use any cooldowns, no flashes,
just like a 300 gold minion.
Then that's a terrible death. It's a scale. It's not like good or bad or high value, low value. It's like extremely low value, low, little, and then it goes up. You know what I mean? Like you want to be on that spectrum closer to the higher end. You want to be hard. Like Faker dies, right? Faker dies. It's part of the game. You're going to die at some point. If you want to die, if the enemy team want to kill you, they will kill you. But
every time it's killed, it's many resources. The jungler's time.
That's my point.
Yeah.
That is my point.
And that comes down to like playing waves really well, trading well, staying healthy, all that sort of stuff.
That's right.
Especially in that, and then now again, we're talking about high elo stuff again because the deaths in high elo games are mostly much higher quality than
for the most part. I mean, you'd be surprised. There are still some. Even for me, I make some pretty fucking basic mistakes.
Yeah, but then even then, still like there is resources. You didn't just give it. You just didn't run.
Right. Yeah, I didn't run at them. Yeah, I know what you mean. But you get. So I just want to raise this as a concept. It's just an interesting concept, I think, for people to think about.
Yeah.
Moving on.
All right. Actually, we've done number 12. We already talked about focusing on climbing, one division, and not 5.
Boom.
Muting or muting. So obviously the narrative that people always love, we actually talked about this in one of the recent episodes, but we'll just do a quick refresher. People know that muting is important. So what I do specifically, I mute all, but then I want to see pings. Some people get really bad with, especially junglers, they're really not good with pings. Sometimes they really make bad decisions and just, sometimes people just say, just mute the pings as well. But the narrative that is popped up is like, I don't want to mute all because I want to see what people are saying about me. When I play well, I want to see people like hyping me up and I want to see the enemy team falling apart. Like that's like so these are the reasons, all the narratives why people just don't mute all.
The most common one, Nathan, is I don't really get affected by that stuff.
Oh yeah, that's the biggest.
Even myself, I fell for that.
Yeah, that's the biggest narrative. It's a complete bullshit.
It's like I don't really get affected by chat, so I can leave it on anyway.
The fact that you're even looking at it and spending time to somewhat process it, you've just missed maybe an opportunity in the game.
It definitely impacts you, at least in a subtle way. And if it impacts you in at least even the tiniest way, then don't have it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm the same as you. I tend to. Right now, what I'm actually doing is I will mute all at the smallest sign of negativity. That's what I do. For me personally, muting is like dodging. It's a very personal thing. There's no cookie cutter solution. But I would say for the most part, 95% of the population in League would be better off just muting all, unmuting pings until master.
Number 14, importance of reflection.
Yes, another very, very big one. Okay. There is no other way outside of coaching to identify stage 4 issues, that meaning more psychological mindset, mental problems in your journey, without reflection. And reflection is basically, you do this a lot, Nathan, after your blocks. So you maybe play a block and you'll just chill on your couch or you go to the shower or whatever, or eating dinner, and you'll just be thinking about that block. What happened in that block?
Repeating moments of the game in my head.
Things are going over in your head. How did I die there? What happened in that game again? Oh yeah, I should have done that. And you're just thinking about, reflecting on what happened in that block. Reflecting on your block is one of the most valuable things that anyone can do, even if it's for 5 minutes in the shower. You're just chilling on the couch, sitting on your bed, whatever it might be. Just think over your block. What happened in that block? Why did I go 1-2 again? What happened in those 2 losses? And you just think them over. And what you're doing is just processing information. You're consolidating learning. You're trying to identify trends.
Visualizing how you actually can be training your brain technically.
And it's actually been proven that the better you get at visualization, it can become very, very similar to real life, to the point where you can learn from visualization.
Crazy.
And so I view it in two things. There is a daily reflection after your SoloQ block, and there's a weekly reflection. And weekly reflection is kind of what we do on our podcast day, where we talk about our week of SoloQ. It's actually kind of like a weekly reflection. We talk about what happened in your week, what happened, what are you doing here? And weekly reflections are very valuable because you see the bigger picture. What happened in my week of SoloQ? Why did I go down 2 divisions or whatever it might be? And it's like, oh, okay, but it's probably worth investigating. Now, sometimes you're like, oh, okay, I didn't play much games this week. I can't really come to any conclusions. Sometimes you'll be able to identify some very interesting trends. Like, oh, I'm dying to a lot of early game ganks. I'm actually getting quite tilted in a lot of games this week. Why is that? And you'll start to mull it over and you know, discover some things about yourself. And this is how you identify those stage 4 issues. This is how you're able to contextualize your climb and understand problems or mindset issues or whatever it might be. So reflection is an incredibly underutilized tool to getting better at League of Legends.
I think that people that for us, like we've just always had that because we're just so obsessed with like getting better at the game. But I think this is actually something that a lot of people would help if they did big time
100%.
because we've just naturally always done it, right?
Well, you naturally do it if you care a lot about the game.
Yeah.
But
or anything if that's the
or anything, whatever your hobby is. But yeah, in the case of League, I think that if you haven't done it before, but why most people don't do it, even if they do care about the game, is that they're so preoccupied with some thing, whether it's YouTube on their phone or listening to music or a podcast in the shower or listening to a podcast while making dinner or whatever the hell it might be. It's just overstimulated.
It's distractions, but it could also be as well. They just want to forget, or like they just will throw it off. It's like, my teammates just suck. Or something like that. You know what I mean? But like, really dig deep, really think about what's going on in the games.
That's right.
So it's like reflection plus review is like thumbs up from the BBC.
Love it.
All right, so the last one here that I've actually got written is toolkit to dealing with tilt. But sort of everything we've talked about this podcast, it is, we've talked about lots of mantras, we talked about the importance of reviewing. Everything we've just talked about, guys, really helps you manage your tilt and manage sabotage.
All of this is a giant toolkit.
Yeah.
The process, the reflection, the SoloQ contract, the understanding your league journey, getting coaching or whatever. This is all one giant, muting all, reviewing. This is all different tools.
Yep.
These all manage your tilt. That's why we don't very rarely get tilted.
No.
We sometimes do, but very rarely get tilted.
Yep. And if we do, we can put out the fire really quick.
Yeah, there was that quote. There was a really interesting quote. I can't remember where I saw it, where it was it was in that documentary, that Stutz documentary, where Jonah Hill talks to his psychiatrist. And Jonah Hill asked him this question. He says, I had this automatic assumption that every problem that I'm talking to you about that I have, that you've automatically figured it out. Like you've never had depression or anxiety or all these things. And the psychiatrist like laughs like hysterically. He's like, that's just the most ridiculous thing ever. And he says, I have those feelings, but I'm very fast at getting out of them.
That's right.
That's the difference.
Yes.
We have those feelings, but
Yes.
we're very fast at getting out of them because we've got these tools.
Yes.
That's exactly. And I'm like, that is identical
Beautiful.
to us.
Tilt, guys, is inevitable in League of Legends. League of Legends is a very
We're all human at the end of the day. We're all competitive. League is it's this brutal combination between a snowball-centric game, anonymity of the internet, competitive spirit. Everyone's highly heated and competitive.
You're sitting down in your chair all the time, so you can't let out the frustration on like the field or something like
together,
that.
And just the way the game plays out, that's why it's very, brutal. That's the case.
Love it. I think that's a great way to end it, Curtis.
Love it.
So that's it, guys. That's our ranked guide extravaganza. What I want to see in the comments is any further questions followed up here. We'll answer these on the next episode. But every time we do these ranked guide for every year, because we're going to be sort of, going over the same stuff, I want to just keep evolving it and be like just adding on to this section of the next year and stuff like that.
There's always something we're changing.
Yeah. So I want to ask questions like, let's say for an example of, I don't want to see like questions in the chat saying like, how do I deal with like how do I think about dodging and stuff like that? Like we've covered like plenty of episodes anyway, but stuff like, more like the stage 4 big picture. Like what are the narratives? It's like, what happens if I know all the tools in the toolkit, I have this toolkit, but I just still can't help control myself, my emotions or something like that. Stuff like that. Like,
what if my brother's better than me at League?
Beautiful. That could be a good one.
Done.
Dealing with that and stuff like that. That's actually just a good normal top podcast topic. It's not really, that's not really a ranked
I just made it up.
But yeah, like what's some questions, So yeah, maybe there's no questions. Maybe we've actually covered everything and they're just like, oh, yep, Curtis and Nathan have all the answers. Instantly beautiful season. Like maybe that's just the case. I hope that's the case for everyone, but that's not, I doubt that's reality. So leave in the comments follow-up questions to all the content we've talked about here. Anything else, Curtis, for this episode?
I'm done.
All right, we'll be back next week, guys. Normal schedule, and we'll have Mailbag as well. We've got some other segments planned as well. We're going to sprinkle in this year. Big year, big season, guys. Also to note as well, we've talked about on one of the other couple of episodes is that we've got now 2 ranked season starts. So what we're seeing now, your placements, all that sort of stuff, it's going to happen again in the middle of the year. And on the counter, in the rank, that actually says 150 days. So you've got 150 days to figure out, to get your final rank for the first split of 2023. So yeah, when you break it down, think about 150 days, it's actually not that long.
Hurry up, I need a pee.
Good work, guys. We'll see you next time.